Okay, hi everyone. I'm Randy Allen. I'm a second year MBA student at Tuck. I'm happy to be here to moderate a panel about the role of new food ingredients to improve the nutrition of foods. I hope that after this panel, a lot more attention will be uh, aimed at this space where there are a lot of ingredients that are trying to improve nutrition. So here I'm here with Eran Baniel, the CEO of DouxMatok, as well as Tom Burrows, the CEO of Epogee, Abhiram Dukkipati, the CEO of Magellan Life Sciences, and Evan Hyman, the VP of Regional Emerging Accounts at Kerry. So at this point, I want the audience to get a better sense of all these companies. So each one is going to present a little bit for a few minutes. So Yvonne, can you go first if you're available?
Thank you.
Okay, hold on, let me share the screen. Okay, you can start now.
Thank you. Well, guys, do in French is sweet. Matok in Hebrew is sweet. Do in Hebrew is double. So sweet, sweet, double sweet, that is DouxMatok. We've developed a sugar-based sugar reduction solution, and that is to address overconsumption of sugar. Can we go to the next slide, please? The problem of overconsumption of sugar is huge. It's all about obesity and diabetes. It's huge human suffering and huge costs to the economy. Can we go to the next slide? And the next, yes. And the challenge is taste. Sugar tastes great, and consumers, when they walk to a shelf, are looking first and foremost for the tastes they love and cherish. Then comes price, then comes health. So can we go to the next slide, please? Sugar is happiness, and you can see it actually during COVID. Although obesity and diabetes were the second biggest risk for death from COVID, people consumed more sugary products than ever before. And Warren Buffett said, and I quite like what he said, take the joys of great sugar taste from people and you'll need to give them antidepressants. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we at DouxMatok have developed Incredo sugar. We make sugar reduction delicious, and in the bulk lost for the sugar reduction, we see an opportunity to introduce better for you ingredients. Can we go to the next slide? That's how do we do it? When you take a bite into a cake, most of the sugar in the cake will have no time to dissolve in your saliva. Most of the cake goes directly where you don't want it, your digestive system. We at DouxMatok load sugar molecules onto a carrier. It can be a mineral, a fiber with a large, huge surface. And we create sugary clusters. We then embed them inside the sugar crystals, changing the format of the crystal to be much more amorphous. So when one of those hits your saliva, it dissolves much faster, giving you an enhanced sensation of sweetness. So we move the sugar more efficiently and we dissolve it more efficiently. Next slide, please. And the great surprise is that not only can we be as sweet at 40-50% reduction. But actually, in consumer research, consumers preferred the DouxMatok reduced sugar products. Now, that's not because our sugar tastes better. It's sugar. We are 99.9% sugar. It's because when you reduce the physical presence of sugar, you make the hazelnut, again, the hero of the hazelnut spread, which is the reason you went out to buy it. Or the butter cookies, it's the butter and the vanilla that are, again, the heroes of the biscuits. Can we go to the next one, please? So we learned that sugar reduction is never going to be an ingredient. It's not about stevia, monk fruit, anything. It's a system. It's a world. And if you want to do sugar reduction that kids will consume, you've got to respect the taste aspect. So we do the whole work, bottoms up. We get briefs, we work on them, we make for the customer what the customer is actually looking for. We've got a large culinary department, and we support that with innovative fibers and plant-based proteins, and we end up with partners that we work with. Next slide, please. During COVID, we couldn't travel, so we concentrated on the tiny Israeli market. And in no time, less than 6 months, we have 12 products on shelves. And next slide, please. 2 weeks ago, we actually launched in North America. And if you go to our Incredo Sugar website, you will see and you can taste 2 products with DouxMatok inside. Hazelnut spread, 50% less sugar and wonderful nutritional value. And similarly, another spread, a salted caramel spread, and you're welcome to try. So to summarize, next one, please. We are on a mission to bring to the market not something which is a pharmaceutical, but an innovative sugar-based sugar reduction solution that gives you the joys of taste that you know and love, and at the same time allowing you such better nutrition. And on the way, we hope to help reduce overconsumption of sugar in the world. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that. Tom, can you go next?
Yeah, thank you very much, Randall. And hello, everybody. It's interesting to listen to Eran talk about sugar reduction. It's an important initiative. Sugar has 4 calories per gram. Epogee, the company that I run, we have an ingredient technology that addresses fat, and fat has 9 calories per gram. So between the 2 of us, we can help improve the nutritional profile of food rather dramatically while still allowing people to enjoy great taste. I will not repeat some of what Eran said about how taste is the most important variable for consumers. And I believe, if you'll jump to the next slide, Randall, that Epogee is truly changing the game. We're here to help food and beverage companies challenge this status quo of marketing delicious, great products that are vastly lower in calories than the traditional fat counterparts. We can reduce fat by as much, or calories from fat by as much as 45%, total calories in a product, without sacrificing taste, texture, or any organoleptic properties in the food. It does sound too good to be true. This was 30 years in the making and is an absolutely breakthrough technology. We're going to help shatter the food industry's perception of lower calorie products because we can we can affect the products we all know and love: potato chips, ice cream, cookies, cakes, brownies, beverages, emulsified beverages, you name it. We can dramatically improve the nutritional profile by lowering the caloric content from fat. Next slide, please. It's proven, Eran mentioned it, consumers definitely desire less calories, but they're demanding absolutely great taste. We did a proprietary study. We had 89% of the people surveyed, with 1,000 people in the survey, express interest in purchasing a product, their favorite products, with 45% less calories at higher prices. So consumers are looking for a way to reduce their caloric intake. Perhaps everybody in this meeting knows this statistic, but the average American consumer consumes 650 excess calories every day, and they're looking for ways to improve that. You cannot out-exercise that kind of a diet, so the whole industry has to take on this obesity epidemic that Eran mentioned. Next page, please. It's a conundrum. How do we solve it? How does you heard Eran's idea? It's a great one. How do we come at it? Next slide, please. We do it with a product called Epogee. It's labeled as modified plant-based oil. It's a new revolutionary technology that lowers calories by reducing the amount of absorbable fat that a person consumes. Next slide, please. Without adding sugars, sweeteners, a lot of other ingredients, just one-for-one replacement fat, we can reduce up to 45% of the calories per serving in your favorite foods. We get 92% reduction in fat calories. Let me make that real simple. Fat's 9 calories a gram. We're 0.7 calories per gram. There's your 92% reduction. So for every gram of fat formulators replace, you save 92% of those calories. And we can be used up to 85% in a formula. So we can replace up to 85% of the fat. Next slide, please. Technology is quite simple. We start with plant-based oil. We start with fat. You may know, some of us that are a little older may remember a product, a rather infamous product called Olestra. Well, they started with a sucrose molecule and it had all kinds of problems. We start with fat. We simply split it apart. We insert a food-grade propoxyl barrier, link it back together. It acts like fat. It drives flavor, humectancy, satiety, lubricity, all the wonderful things that fat brings. But that propoxyl barrier prevents your body from absorbing those calories. So when the Epogee enters your body, it returns to a solid state, simply is undigested, undetected in your digestive tract, leaves the body, and is biodegradable in the environment. Next slide, please. As I said, this is over 30 years in the making. Unlike that infamous product, this is perfectly safe. We have had people consume up to 150 grams of Epogee a day. That's a third of a pound of Epogee without any digestive issues, without any gastrointestinal issues that are associated with other alternative fats. So tremendously studied. There's over 60 studies behind this. And as I said, many years in the making to launch this technology. We have, next slide, please. We've received GRAS approval in 14 product categories, no consumption limits per day, none whatsoever. Right now, we have served, our customers have served close to 20 million servings of products containing Epogee with not one issue, not one complaint. People love what it does to a product. Our biggest customer, Nick's Swedish Ice Cream. You have a healthy ice cream at about 100 calories less than Halo Top per serving, but you get all this smooth, creamy, premium mouthfeel from the ice cream. So it's truly a remarkable product. We're in commercialization. We are about to sign our 11th customer as well. So things are up and moving. And I will stop there and move it to the next person. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tom. Next, Abhiram, can you go and present?
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Can you go to the first slide, please? Guilt, we talked about sugar. So when most of us have indulged in a sweet tooth, we felt guilty at some point or the other. And in spite of that, the average consumer consumes about an amount of sugar that's almost equivalent to his or her body weight per year. It's a shocking statistics, but that's the average amount about the customer who's not careful with his or her diet. Yeah. If you go to the next slide, please. And this kind of excess calorie gluttony from this kind of sugar consumption has led to a global epidemic of obesity and diabetes and other metabolic syndrome diseases. And these have a very knock-on effect on public health systems. And this is, I mean, no more obvious than what's been happening, unfortunately, during the COVID pandemic time. And it's a very serious public health issue, excess calorie consumption from sugar consumption from processed foods. Having said that, there are alternatives out there, artificial sweeteners, stevia, and like Eran was saying, and his company, there's a lot of innovation happening in this area in terms of how do you reduce carbohydrate content. And we have a different approach, and the way we look at it is nature in all its wisdom has another substitute for sugar in the form of a protein. If you go to the next slide, please. The name of this protein is called Brazil. It's found in a very rare West African fruit on the west coast of Africa. This fruit's been consumed for centuries by the local tribes for the sweetness that comes from Brazil in the fruit. And the fascinating thing about Brazil is it's not a carbohydrate, it's a protein. It's about 1,000 times sweeter than protein. And in terms of the taste profile, it's very close to sucrose. It's not like sucrose, I should be very clear. It's very close to sucrose, this one. So in terms of a molecule, an alternate molecule that is not a carbohydrate and can be a substitute, Brazil as a protein ticks the right boxes. It is about 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. It tastes like sugar for the most part. And most importantly, it already has a very safe history of consumption, albeit in a certain geographical region. Having said that, it's an ideal molecule that can address a lot of sugar reduction needs. But the problem is this fruit is very hard to grow. So you cannot do large-scale agriculture per se from it. And the yield of Brazil per plant is very low. So obviously the other alternatives is to try and produce this in fermentation-based systems. People have tried it, but it's a tricky and a very hard protein to make because of the three-dimensional structure of the protein. So in theory, it's a very good concept, good molecule, but it still needs a lot of work to get it to a market as a viable sugar replacement on a global scale. And this is where we come in. If you change, next slide, please. We are Magellan Life Sciences. We are basically a synthetic biology company. And what we do is we are trying to address one problem, which is using E. coli as a host platform and addressing the problem of protein secretion in E. coli. This has been a very long-standing problem in this manufacturing and fermentation technology. And essentially, my background is I'm actually a biologist and a biochemist, spent a lot of time making a lot of hard-to-make protein. And my co-founder is Lakshmi Wadle. She has a lot of experience in business development, this one. And essentially what we've done is, in a sense, we've addressed and come up with a solution to protein secretion in E. coli. And E. coli is preferable in a lot of cases because it's a cheap platform. If you go to the next slide, please. And essentially what this does is it allows us to manufacture these proteins in large fermenters, and the downstream purification, because of the secretion aspect of this platform, becomes very, very cheap. I mean, typically the downstream is about
Looks like we might have lost you, Abraham. I'll try to see if I can bring him back on. Okay. While he is, while we try to get him back, how about we start with Evan at Kerry? How about you present?
Sure. Thank you very much, Randy. Appreciate it. Probably not the introduction I was hoping for. Look, I'm excited to be here, and it's been great to, I think, be hearing sort of the different visions of the different companies on this panel, because clearly, Kerry is in a very different place as far as the supply chain from an ingredient perspective, a little bit more established. So maybe if you can go to the next slide, I can tell you a little bit more about Kerry, and I'm excited to do that. So for those of you who don't know Kerry, we consider ourselves a taste and nutrition company. Our heritage is really around delivering better taste, health, and well-being globally. So we are a global company started in Ireland. We have a very strong food and beverage heritage, led by insights and innovation, with a strong base in science and technology. I think that's a very common theme you're going to hear about anybody who's working in sort of the ingredients or technology space, but with strong application, culinary excellence, and a really strong platform around taste and nutrition solutions. Next slide, please. So who is Kerry? For those of you who don't know Kerry, I mean, we are not a small company. We're a 7 billion euro company, revenue in 2020. But if you look at where that revenue is derived from, well over 80% of it is coming from, what we call our taste and nutrition portfolio of products. We sell over 18,000 products. We have 1,000 R&D scientists across the globe. But I think what's really interesting to me about this slide is if you look at sort of the heritage of where Kerry started on the bottom from 1972, really started around the dairy space, quite strong in dairy, with an evolution to ingredients and flavors, and then even rounding it out to overall taste and nutrition across the portfolio of products that we sell. Kerry has grown by acquisition for sure, plus organic growth as well. And you can see some of the different companies that Kerry has acquired, in the, for example, probiotic space, the clean preservation space, things of that sort. So, I mean, I even heard on one of the other panels a lot of talk around what people wish they had from an ingredient perspective. I mean, Kerry is very driven by what the consumer trends are, and that's a very key part of how we drive things. Next slide. So, getting a little deeper in terms of insight and innovation, we do operate in 32 countries. Our teams are immersed in the markets, cultures and daily lives of our consumers, and we really take that regional understanding to heart. And we actually have a very strong consumer product research group as well, and a strong understanding of regulatory landscape. Those food scientists that we mentioned, they can tap into that large ingredient and flavor portfolio, really working closely with our customers to drive things speed to market using also in-house analytical and sensory expertise. And the last part about it, which kind of pulls it all together, is our application and culinary excellence. We have dedicated food teams for food service, retail, and convenience channels. We have a pretty strong chef team as well, and even baristas and mixologists that work with, the application scientists. Next slide. So I wanted to throw this slide in because obviously, sustainability is a key piece that everyone talks about. And, we have a pretty strong strategy against sustainability. By 2030, we've done a variety of work to make this kind of commitment that we're going to reach over 2 billion people, every day with sustainable nutrition. And it's really that idea that, it's bringing positive and balanced nutrition solutions, and good health, to a variety of people across the globe. That's a large number. It's a large commitment by Kerry to go from to that number. Next slide. So, I think this is very much in line with a lot of the things that people have talked about to some degree. I think I heard from some of the other panelists, taste is clear. We have a variety of different solutions, particularly focusing on sustainable nutrition in the taste area, whether it's flavors, stocks and broths, other things along those lines. Preservation, clean label preservation. How do you, keep your products preserved for a long time? Proactive health, particularly in the probiotic area, and of course, plant-based food. Kerry has launched a whole portfolio of products in the plant-based space, where we are working with, our customers very strongly to bring products to the marketplace using the insights and the other things that I've talked about before. And actually, my last slide, if you can go to the next slide. So one of the things that Kerry does every year is that we do quite a bit of market research, and we actually put out taste charts. And the reason why I wanted to reference this is, we look at this kind of information as, this is just one slide from a very large bit of information. We look at what's really happening out there. How do we utilize that information that we're getting from the marketplace? How do we work proactively with our customers to look at, functional ingredients, alternative ingredients, multi-sensorial ingredients, and even things like taste enhancers? These are some of the trends. And, candidly, some of these things are things that we do have in our portfolio, some aren't. But it's really about what are the trends that we're seeing? What's our proprietary market research looking at, whether it's, from a meat alternative, people looking at walnut or dairy, oat milk. Obviously, that's probably an obvious one. We've heard quite a bit on sweetener alternatives. These are some of the things that we've seen clearly. We probably need to speak to some of the folks on the panel to get you guys on here as well in the future. But I just wanted to really raise this up from the perspective of, just because we're a large company doesn't mean we're not looking at what the market's out doing, and how do we look at this from what it means for our customers, and how do we ultimately partner with our customers to bring things to market in a proactive way. So with that, I probably have used my 5 minutes, but I'll leave it there, Randy, for now.
All right, thank you, everybody. So at this point, I want to move into question and answer section. So I have a few planned questions, but at this time, I want to remind the audience that there is a Q&A submission box at the bottom of the screen. So this first question is for Evan and Eran. So current market trends involve clean labels and sustainability, but there are a lot of priorities that should be considered with novel ingredients. So I'm wondering, how do you prioritize price, taste, nutrition, sustainability, and a clean label, and why?
Eran, do you want to go? Or?
I'll let Evan go. No, you go. That's
okay,
fine.
Great. Thank you.
I'll follow.
That's fine. So, look, I think as Kerry, we're all ultimately looking at partnership with our customers. How do we drive our customers to market in the best way? I think it's fair to say that, everyone today is looking at how do we get a more nutritious label? How do we reduce, whether it's fat or sugar, or have the best taste, and because Kerry has such a strong breadth in our portfolio, I think we're able to work with our customers, bring the insight to it, and then, really work with them in some ways a customized way, depending on the level of customer, and how can we actually, bring solutions to the market with them, that really balances all of those things. I was having a discussion with somebody earlier, and I haven't heard many people ask me, can you make my nutrition panel worse? They're always looking for a better nutrition panel. Right. So I think everybody on this panel will probably give you a similar answer, is that we're doing things to make things better all the way across the board. And, I wanted to mention that sustainability piece because, we're rooted in that from a sustainable nutrition perspective. So maybe I'll pause there. And Eran, if you want to follow.
I'll just say that the psychological side of taste is huge. And that whilst we are looking at our calories and at so many things, we tend to forget that we need people to be happy. So now think, what would happen if Tom and me were to do a bar of chocolate? We can reduce the sugar by 50%, 50. He can literally take the fatty calorie calculation out. Both of us actually make great products, great tasting products. So at the end, the consumer gained. So we differentiate ourselves first and foremost on taste, because without it, only certain people will adopt better nutrition. Taste is a precondition for really effective, improved nutrition. And the work Tom and his company is doing, and the work we are doing, comes from that angle. And sorry, I've appropriated you, Tom, without even checking with you ahead of time. So first, yes, it's taste. Then, yes, it's nutrition. And on the way, yes, you have to be clean label as much as you can. But at the end of the day, you are using ingredients and you want them to be flashed and you want to be proud of them. So it's not either or. You've got to have it all. And that's what we are aiming to do.
Okay, that's great. The next question is for Tom. So you kind of showed that EPG can be used for a wider array of applications. So I'm wondering, how did you decide on the product scope for your ingredients, and what factors were the most important in deciding the types of foods that you would target initially?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. You know, you go back to some of your basics of marketing and segmentation. Key for a startup is you have limited resources, and you have to go after the most relevant ones, the ones that can help you the most. We look for revenue, we look for growth. That's what a startup is about. So for us, we segmented several ways. First and foremost, we were looking for disruptors, people who wanted to truly launch products that improve the nutritional profile for consumers. The passion that Eran showed, I think, is inside of every startup, you know, around taste, and it's behind actually every ingredient company I've ever been a part of, from the smallest to the largest, to the Kerrys. We're here to put out great tasting products that are nutritionally solid. So, but for us, we need disruptors. You know, sugar reduction is a hot topic. Plant-based protein is a hot topic, as is nutritional improvement. But when you're a startup, you have to build awareness of what you've got. And for us, we knew first and foremost we had to have disruptors, people with disruptive plans. They wanted to do something like when Halo Top launched healthy ice cream. They went from a 1.6 market share to a 22.3 market share in 2 years. They created an entire category called healthy ice cream, and that came out of the market share of the top 2 players. So those are the kinds of people that our company looked for. Obviously, we looked for companies that had higher fat products, potato chips, certain baked goods, ice creams, chocolate bars. I smile. I have a chocolate bar sitting behind me that's 70 calories a serving, about to be launched nationally in all Kroger stores, called Gatsby bars, and it addresses sugar and it addresses fat, exactly as described. 70 calories a serving, and tastes remarkable. High fat products, strong marketing orientation. If the company can't tell its consumer what it's doing, then that isn't an ideal customer for us. higher margin products for us. I mean, technology and ingredients tend, to have a higher price points. So someone's got to be able to have that margin situation and price situation to be able to offer. We start with fat, so you can imagine we add more costs than just a fat. And I think lastly, the customer had to have a better for you platform. So we looked at those 5 variables, and sure enough, you can transfer that into the types of accounts. They're from the biggest of the big food companies all the way to the startups and the entrepreneurs that are looking at our product, doing project work right now. So segmentation key to this whole thing. Once you have a supply chain, once you have a solid production stream, segmentation, going to market in the right places is key.
Makes sense. So my next question is for Eran and Tom again. So once you have your target market, I'm wondering more about your path to market and how tough it can be for ingredient companies. Can you speak more about your go-to-market strategy and how that has changed over time? Like, for example, if you were, or how do you think about creating your own branded foods versus partnering with established brands?
Shall I start, Tom?
Yeah, please.
You mentioned it earlier when you said it's tough to go into retail today. There's no real space for innovation in most retail. So we had to find another way, because everybody's claiming they have wonderful products. Until you actually taste a product, you're not there. And that's why we devised our launch to be a D2C, direct to consumers, to raise awareness of our sugar, of the Incredo sugar. And people are logging in and are buying those spreads, 2 spreads, and they are experiencing, and they are saying loud and clear that they can't believe they've just consumed a hazelnut spread with 50% less sugar and no palm oil, etc. And that's our only way to really try and speed up the long and tedious process of having the big guys accept new ingredients. And even in the 2 weeks we started, we have now a number of projects that are moving faster than in the 2 years previous to our launch. So for us, it's how do we get it out there for people to taste, and every possible way. We are also like in a pop-up grocer in Chicago. We are in a couple of stores in Florida. We do everything we can to allow people to see that it's actually possible, and you can have great taste and wonderful nutrition.
Yeah, I would only add that it's a tempting thing for an ingredient company to do exactly as Eran did, which is go to direct-to-consumer market, start to establish this reference of what your product can be, and it tends to draw in a lot of customers. For example, when we launched with Nick's Swedish ice cream, we heard from every ice cream company in America and in Europe wanting to take a look at our ingredient because there was a reference out there. So it's very tempting as an ingredient company to say, let me launch a consumer product to build this reference. We've chosen not to do that. We've chosen to not compete with the people that will be our customers. But I completely understand that approach and am tempted to do it in one category. We have a category where I can't seem to find a disruptor. It's one of the most heavily consumed salty snacks in the United States, and maybe we could be the disruptor. It's much easier today to go to market using a direct-to-consumer model, but it's still, you gotta, I believe in limited resources targeted against very specific initiatives. So for my firm, it's a little more difficult to have a foot in both sides of this. So we've chosen to stay the ingredient route and try to find the disruptors in the food industry. Interestingly, there's a lot of status quo in the food industry. There's a lot of talk about nutrition, maybe not as much people actually taking hard concrete steps to do things that improve the nutritional value. And frankly, if they do it, they're going to thrill the customer. That's been proven time and again. So I'm a little mystified by talking the game, yet not necessarily playing the game, but we try to bust through that and find people who are very interested in renovating and innovating, truly improving the nutritional profile of their food.
Okay. My last question is for Evan and Eran, maybe. So with your products, I'm wondering more about the market positioning and the competition. I wanted to know if you compete more with incumbent ingredients or against companies that commercialize novel ingredients. And basically, just how do you think about partnerships in general versus partners being potential competitors?
I mean, I think partnerships are key, right? I mean, even if it's just a quote unquote sales relationship where you're selling to a customer, it's got to be a partnership ultimately, because we're all trying to drive and grow for success. I think one of the unique things about Kerry and the position we have in the market is that we, to some degree, we're a little bit more downstream from an ingredient perspective, because not just that we supply a variety of technologies, ingredients into the marketplace, but depending on the kind of category, we actually can be the producer of, to use Tom's word, the disruptor. So we do have assets that allow us to offer end-to-end solutions where, for example, we might be actually making the beverage, not necessarily under a Kerry brand of any sort, but from a sort of a manufacturing perspective for that disruptive company, as an example. So that's I think a unique positioning in the market versus just supplying an ingredient solution or a technology.
I don't have much to add to Evan. I would say that the biggest competition for DouxMatok is sugar, white sugar, because it's so cheap and so abundant and so available, and what a temptation to use as much sugar as you can to make gains on price of product. And as Tom said, we take sugar and we make something from it. So we are, by definition, more expensive. But I don't believe it's really sustainable. Neither the sugar nor most high-intensity sweeteners, because at the end of the day, you've got to solve it in an innovative way, and I believe that you can't reduce sugar based on an ingredient. It's a whole world. It's a totality that comes into expression in a final product. So we learn from everyone, and we work with people, including the sugar guys, and work well with them. But we are aware that this is another kind of ways of solving nutritional challenges.
Okay, thanks for that. In the sake of time, I would like to wrap up the panel and say I want to thank all of our panelists very much. I hope the audience has learned as much as I have throughout this process. The next panel that's coming up right now is covering investing in alternative proteins with representatives from Big Idea Ventures, Stray Dog Capital, Lever VC, and Ag Funder. So I hope everyone continues to enjoy the summit, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.